Hey everybody, it's Andrea. Today, Q and Vash stop by to cause trouble. Worf cannot catch a break. And we ask the question, how hard is Picard sweating knowing that Vash and Beverly became chummy? Stay with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we are talking season 4, episode 20, Qpid, which, as you can guess, it's a Q episode.
I thought you were going to say it's about love.
Oh no, I don't give a shit about that. It's about Q. Which you do know that I'm a huge Q fan. This episode is written by Randy Russell and Ira Stephen Bear and directed by Cliff Bull. Captain Picard and Vash are reunited when the Enterprise hosts an archaeology symposium, but their disparate personalities soon have them sparring. Q arrives and offers to do Captain Picard a solid by getting him and Vash back together again.
A solid. Face. Was that there in the description, or was that an Andrea edition?
That was not there. That was okay. Me. And then when Picard rejects the notion, Q transforms the captain into Robin Hood and sends him, Vash, and several members of Picard's senior staff to Sherwood Forest. This is such a fun and light episode. What are your initial thoughts, Shereese?
My initial thoughts were, I always skip this episode. I always skip it. And here's why I skip it. Because I have always confused this episode with Hollow Pursuits. Right? Because in that episode...
Oh, I could totally see that.
Do you know why? Because in that episode, Barclay's in the holodeck and everyone's dressed kind of similarly, and it's really stupid. So the thumbnail for this episode always looks like that holodeck scene. So whenever I see the thumbnail, I would think like, oh, this is that stupid holodeck thing, but somehow Q is involved next. So that was my initial thought. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, this episode is so good. And I'm so bummed that I've been missing it all these years, missing it on the rewatch because I thought it was freaking Hollow Pursuits.
I call this one in my mind, I call this one Cappuccino Star Trek. It's light, it's frothy, it's fun. It's just fun and light. There's nothing heavy about it. Worf has some really great lines where he goes, I am not a merry man.
Yes, that was a good line.
One of the best lines. Or when he smashes Geordi's mandolin to pieces on the tree and then goes, sorry.
Or when he runs into a sword battle with someone on a horse, like while everybody else is, after saying, I will not play the fool for Q's amusement, raw, and then goes and fights where everybody else is just looking at him. Like, so great.
Mr. Worf, just retreat. Anyway, so this episode's super fun and light. This episode was actually written to capitalize on the success of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Christian Slater, which had just come out like a year or two before. And so they had originally thought like, let's bring Vash back, played by the beautiful Jennifer Hetrick. We really love that like love dynamic. Let's make it a love story like Romeo and Juliet. And then they were like, but Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, like just came out and it's made like this huge splash. Let's do that. So that's what they did. And I thought
was a good call.
Really, really fun. It was a good call.
This was so much more fun than Romeo and Juliet, right? Because that's such a
way more fun,
wars, like blood feuds type of a storyline. But this one is just like, like it was just
a happy little trot through Sherwood Forest. Picard's wearing a snappy little goatee. It's just fun.
I love Picard's goatee. So great. I love how he looks as Robin Hood.
I think he looks fantastic, which is actually, it's funny. He plays King Edward or Robert or something, like one of the like Robin Hood characters in another film, which is pretty funny, but it was like years later, I think. So that's kind of funny that like there's like this little bit of crossover. I think he makes one hell of a Robin Hood. He's super convincing. This episode is just sort of like a shitstorm of great things because you get Vash back and you get this like really fun dynamic, and then Q is coming in here to like stir shit up even more, and it's just really delightful. It's just one of those fun ones.
This might be my favorite Q episode in TNG so far. We'll wait to the very end because I just loved how Q set the scene and then just let it go. And then he stepped in to intervene to make it worse. And then he stepped back again. Like, this is cute. This is so much better than the stupid dog costume episode where we were like, what is going on? And he was popping in
with the green screen sky that they didn't even bother to add a color.
And the kitty litter as the ground and all this stuff. And every time Q popped up, it was just annoying, but not here. Here it was like, he was the author of this really interesting play, and he was jumping into the story from time to time. I love this. I love Q in this one.
It felt reminiscent to me, to be honest, of the elementary Dear Data episode where Geordi asks the computer to create a rival that could beat Data and creates this Moriarty character who, you know, it's a program that has a mind of its own. And now they're like, ooh, we can't stop this. Let's kind of see how this plays out. And I think he was very much of that, like, he's not even trying to stop it. He's like, let's just see how I can make this worse, and then step back and eat like some chicken wings and just watch the destruction unfold.
Totally. Oh, this episode was so great.
So fun. All right. So let's jump in. So Captain Picard is up late. He's working and reworking and triple working this already brilliant speech he's written on archaeology for this upcoming symposium, of which he will be a keynote speaker. And Troy comes in and she's like, Captain, we've already gone over this a bunch. The speech is brilliant. You don't need to rewrite it again. It's perfect. It's late. Go to bed.
And what I love about this is his nerves. I love how nervous he is about being the keynote speaker, because it's like nobody can make Picard nervous besides Troy's mom, but that's more of a like anxiety than nervous. That's more of a like get me out of here. But like to see him actually like kind of fanboy over people was so unique. I was like, oh my goodness, he has people that he wants to impress. Like, this is amazing. And the people that he wants to impress are archaeologists. I just love that it's connected to his hobby.
It feels very much like he's about to give a speech in front of a bunch of chess grandmasters or something. It's kind of right up there in that sort of like nerdiness sort of level where it's like the grandmasters are going to be here, right? Where it's like, oh, cool. But yeah, it's archaeologists. And she finally convinces him very, very diplomatically, like, look, the speech is perfect. You need some rest. And I thought she was going to say the captain needs a holiday, which is a throwback to when he actually met Vash the first time, which I was like, okay. So as Picard is returning to his quarters, he notices that the lights are dimmed except for one area on the table where a Horgon is up front.
And my first thought was, wow, Picard keeps his Horgon there? That's what he decided to do with it, to keep it on like his coffee table or whatever. And then when Vash peeks around the corner, I was like, oh, she put it there. Okay.
She put it there.
But at first I was like, okay, they were good memories, but I just thought that was an interesting place for him to put it in his home.
Yeah. When he has like tea with Beverly most mornings, the Horgon's just right out there. So she does pop back in. She goes, bring back any good memories, or something like that. And he goes, Vash. And he's genuinely happy to see her. And I think it's lovely. And he's very disarmed, and they get it on immediately. And I was like, Vash is back. This is so much fun. Now, a little bit of trivia. The actress who plays Vash is Jennifer Hetrick, and she and Patrick Stewart met on the Captain's Holiday episode. And this episode came out a year and a little bit more later, and they were reportedly engaged at the time of filming this episode. And this episode actually filmed over Valentine's Day, 1991. So there's kind of a lot of like romantic tie-ins with everything going on here. Now, Hetrick and Stewart never actually married, and it seems like time has taken care of everything, and they've each moved on to their own partners and whatnot. But I thought it was kind of cool that they were engaged at the time of this episode. So it must have been a great deal of fun, actually, to like work together on this. Must have been really fun.
Yeah. And I will say that throughout this episode, they bicker like a married couple. So that's kind of cute that they were actually engaged in real life. I think that's adorbs. The next morning, when we see Picard and Vash sitting at the table, I didn't realize that was the next morning. I thought that was dinner. And I thought to myself, man, I really would love to see Picard let his hair down. He's wearing his uniform. I'd love to see him in his casual clothes, whatever that looks like, just kind of chilling with Vash. But then when Beverly comes, I was like, oh, snap, he had a dinner date with her. And then when she says, oh, we have tea most mornings, I was like, oh, this is the next day. This is the morning. He's dressed for work. And also, he has tea with Beverly every morning. I didn't know that. And also, this is awkward. And at that moment, I want to pull out my popcorn. Because it was just like, you're here. Oh, you're here. I've never met you. It was just like so great.
Yes. Now, Beverly does show up the next morning, and Picard is totally flummoxed. He's like, may I introduce Dr. Dr. Crusher. She's the Dr.
Beverly Crusher.
Yes, very much that way. And Vash is like,
my professional only colleague.
Yeah.
And this is Dr.
But not too
Vash,
professional, Beverly.
my other professional only
archaeology.
So I met her on Risa, but she's here for archaeology.
Well,
and so
who wants some tea? Yeah. So he does say Dr. Crusher, and Vash is very, very generous. She's like, oh yes, Jean-Luc has told me all about you. And Beverly's like, I wish he would have told me all about you. And now Picard is just sweating bullets because he's like, my future and my current girlfriends are talking, and oh god. And he starts phoning around to Worf to be like, any emergencies to report? Do I need to go anywhere? Now, I thought the women do the very cool, intelligent, independent woman girl power thing. And they're like, Dr. Crusher, I have never had the pleasure of touring the Enterprise. Do you think you might take me around? And Beverly's like, I would be delighted. And I think she gives her teacup to poor Picard, who's like, can an electricity monster get me out of this or anything? He's like, can I call in like a Borg thing? Like, yes, what do I do?
This totally reminded me of the episode, and we're going to get to it. I don't, maybe next season, but that episode that's like one of our favorites with the time where their minds get like deleted and they don't know who they are and stuff. So in that episode, Riker hooks up with Ro, who like are enemies in their right minds, but in this like mystery world, they hook up. And then like at the end, Ro and Troy are talking, and he's just like, two of my exes are like chit-chatting about, they must be talking about me or what I'm like or whatever. And he's just like terrified. This is exactly what this reminded me of. And I was like, this must be like a man's worst nightmare or something. Not being a man, I have no idea. But the way these male characters react, I'm like, this must be like your worst nightmare for two of your exes or whatever to talk.
If popular culture has taught us anything, it is that it is their worst nightmare. So I don't know if that's in real life, but it works. Now, as Beverly is very generously showing Vash around, Vash is meeting other people who Captain Picard serves with. And she's like, Vash from Risa. And they're all like, yeah. So she is really disappointed that Picard hasn't mentioned her to anyone. And during this reception, because they are above Tegas 3 for this archaeological symposium, Tegas 3 is these ruins that have been sealed off for 100 years. So they're really just orbiting to be like, cool, look at the planet, but like we can't actually go there. Now she calls him out on this during the reception. And she's like, what? Are you embarrassed by my being here? Do you not want me here? Why haven't you told anybody about me? And what Vash has kept hearing from everyone is like, the captain is a very private man. He's very private. And she's like, yeah, I've heard this before. Right. And poor Picard is like, I don't know what, I'm sorry if you're upset, but like, what do you want me to do? I'm very private. It's not appropriate to talk about these kinds of things with my crew, whatever. Now he storms into his ready room, and who is sitting right there, Shereese? But Q.
Bum, bum, bum.
This episode just got 1,000 times better. It's Q.
Yeah. My favorite part about this, I 100% agree. My favorite part is when Q looks at him and says, well, don't just stand there, say something. And Picard says, get out of my chair. Like, that's what he wants to say. I just thought that was great. I like laughed out loud.
I do love that. I love Picard's obsession with chairs too. Get out of my chair, get out of my chair, get out of my chair. Like, that's what he cares about. Now, he is basically like, Q, what the fuck do you want? Like, why are you here? We haven't seen you for a while. And Q kind of bandies about, but finally he's like, I owe you a debt of gratitude from saving my life from the last time I was here with the Calamarain. They would have killed me. And
for allowing me to go back to the continuum. So thanks for that. Or else I would have been a human forever. So thanks.
Or a dead,
or just dead very quickly
until the Calamarain killed me. And by the way, I didn't even have to look back on my notes for this. I did remember that they're called the Calamarain, and I will never remember that again. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I never went back.
No, I think that's right, and I'm pretty impressed. I'm going to say that's 100% accurate without checking either. And I'm totally impressed that just popped into your brain because I forgot I was all about that.
Got it. Yeah. Now this debt is hanging over Q, who's like, I need to repay this debt. I don't like owing you anything. So
I resent owing you anything. I was like, that is the funniest thank you I've ever heard. I resent owing anyone anything. So what do you want?
I don't want to be thankful. Yeah. You're like, okay.
And I like Picard's response. He was like, just leave. That'll be thanks enough. Just that's
that is
good.
the most Shereese answer ever. If you just left, that would be enough.
That would be great.
Payment
that's all I want.
in full. Done.
Yeah. And for some reason, he didn't take that deal.
Totally could have taken the deal and gone around destroying somebody else's life, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, ooh, I could take you to the ruins of Tegas 3. They were sealed off a century ago. Ooh. Because then, of course, Picard, who's very righteous, was like, that would be against the law. Although he's totally tempted, but he's like, that would be unethical. And
blah,
so I'm
not going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Q's like, ooh.
Rah, rah, rah.
And blah, blah, blah. Like, he
Nailed
just
it.
bandies. He
Nailed
bandies exactly like why he can't go down there. And Q's like, ooh, but we could go back in time to when they weren't.
I thought that was genius. I don't know why he said no to that. Like,
why would you say no to this?
I was wondering what you would have said in this scenario. Yeah, Q is like not to be trusted, but like, I was wondering what you would say. Like, I wrote that in my notes. Like, what would Andrea say? Because I was like, because my first thought was like, I really want to see the ruins, and you're offering it to me, and I know I can't see it now, but you can time travel. Can you just take me back to when it was legal, and then we could go check it out? That would have been. I don't see why that was a problem.
I would take him up on it and make Q swear some sort of oath on his debt to me that like the debt will not be repaid until I'm returned safely back on the Enterprise at a time of my choosing, or something along those lines. Because, you know, Q's going to be like, oh, I'll bring you back when you're 9,000 years old. And you're like, God damn it. You know, but like when you want something along those lines.
Did you ever see the movie Leprechaun?
No.
It's got to be
Sounds like a horror story.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the worst movies ever made. And actually there are many sequels to the Leprechaun. So like the terribleness, it's kind of like Sharknado. Think of it as that quality. Not that I've seen Sharknado, but like the kind of like it's funny bad or whatever. So it's a horror, but it's like horror. It's bad. It's funny bad.
It really is a horror movie?
It really is a horror movie. And there's like a leprechaun.
Totally just guessed.
There's a leprechaun kind of like Chucky. And the leprechaun grants you 3 wishes when you find it's like pot of gold or something. But whatever you wish for, it twists it so that it's like the worst curse you could ever have. So one guy, he wishes for like X-ray vision because he's like a teenager. He's like 16 or something. He wishes for X-ray vision so he could like peep on the girls in the shower at school. So
that's
then
cool. You'll just see a bunch of skeletons.
Sexy. So that's what happens. The leprechaun gives him like X-ray vision. So he can like see through the walls, and he can see the naked girls, but then he can see their skeletons, but then he can see like the cells inside their body. And oh, by the way, your eyesight is permanently like that, and you can never see anything else. So that's how all the wishes turn out, is like, whatever you wish for, he somehow twists it so it's like the worst thing in the world, and then you can't ever get your other wishes. So I feel like Q is a little bit like that. Not so evil, but it's a little bit like, be careful what you wish for, because whatever you ask or say or agree to, Q is going to like twist it to be something you did not want. And he knows good and well you didn't want that thing.
Well, you know what's interesting is that John Delancey, when they asked to bring him back for this episode, he had said, you know, Q is omnipotent, but he's not very scary. And I want him to be actually like a little bit more of a threat than a nuisance. And they were like, you got it. We're going to write you this episode, Qpid, for you to be. And he's like, okay. And then it ended up being this episode where it's like, you're not any more scary than you were already. Like, I think,
but also he wasn't annoying at all. He wasn't annoying in this episode at all.
He was dangerous in the sense that it's like, oh, no, I'm not going to stop this whole charade. I can't stop it even if I wanted to. It's just like, it's false. You're fucking Q. You could change anything. But it wasn't a Chucky leprechaun that's going to make you have X-ray vision for the rest of your life until you kill yourself or something.
And I'm pretty happy about that, because I wouldn't like evil Q. Like, I like precocious Q. I like lovable scamp Q. Like, I like that. I think that's a fun, you can't really call him a villain, but a fun character.
He's like the outrageous Okana with more powers. He's lovable.
Yeah. And not so hateable like the outrageous Okana.
Shereese hates him a lot more than I do, but yeah, for sure.
So much more.
Now, Picard refuses this. And I thought it was really cool that Q was like, I can take you back 2 billion years to when Tegas 3 was a living, breathing thing. They really knew how to party. I was like, fuck yeah.
How cool is that? Not even the ruins, but the actual
time machine, the hot tub time machine, or the whatever else. Let's get it on, buddy. And let's fire this up and go. You know, you bring me back when I say in 20 minutes time. Okay. And nothing bad will have happened to me. And we're good. Like, let's go.
But he could stay. I mean, it's Q. He could stay for years and still be returned at the exact moment and age that he was when he left. How could you say no to that?
Yeah. Well, it's Picard.
Because you can't trust Q. That's why.
No, you can't. That's the problem. Now, Picard does think like, I've got this pissed off quasi girlfriend or whatever here. So let me go smooth things over. And did you notice that when he walked to her quarters, a crewman happened to be passing by? So he kept walking and then he kind of backed up. I
did. Cause I was like, why does he look so sus?
Ship.
You can go into anyone's room.
So suspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can go into anybody's room.
Any room you want.
At any point, like it's not a big deal.
Doesn't matter.
And what's going to happen if that random ensign sees you going into Vash's room? What is the worst that's going to happen? There's going to be gossip that you were in Vash's room, who's already your girlfriend, and now all the bridge crews knows. So
they already know. Exactly. Yeah. That's the whole thing. Like they already know. Everybody already knows. So it's like, so what? And also, I don't think the crewman would probably be aware because why? Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, as he's going to smooth things over, though, he discovers that she has a map out of the ruins of Tagus 3, along with the shovel from her backpack on Ryza. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. I saw that it was already assembled too. I was like, wow, she's thinking ahead this time.
Where's the rest of the backpack? Yeah. I think the backpack disassembles and becomes the shovel because that's how space age they are. There's nothing left of the backpack when you're done assembling. You use all the pieces from
zero waste.
Now, I will say the piece of equipment that she also has in there, that cool kind of box with the like light tube, that was used in the Survivors with Kevin and Rashawn, and they were using it to like terraform. Remember, Kevin killed like the entire.
No, I remember that episode, but I don't remember this device.
He was. Yeah, so they were out on their little yard at one point, like like using this little thing, and I was like, cool. And I looked back on it, and it's the exact same one.
What did it do exactly? It added grass to the dirt, or like it magicked something. It
magicked something in the dirt. I'm gonna assume it like drilled a thing into some dirt, or like took some readings at a tricorder. Maybe I don't know. It looked like some kind of like agricultural. It looked like something agricultural.
Okay. That's neat. That's neat. Even just for that like 3 seconds of screen time. That was cool how he just went in the back and was like, what are you up to? Like that was totally worth it. A++ props department.
I love those little things and the world building too, where it's like, where'd you get your hands on Kevin's agricultural tools? Did he retire? Did he put this up on eBay? Like what?
We don't know what happened to Kevin. He probably did.
No.
He probably did.
He's probably going to be the end of the universe. Him and Q are going to fight it out, and he's going to kill Q.
Man, that'd be a good episode.
That would be.
What I love about this scene when Picard's just like, wait a minute, you're up to your old tricks and you're up to something. And she's like, duh, I'm the bad guy, which I just love Vash. She's just like, duh. And I just thought, I love how she says to him, I am not going to change who I am for you or for anybody. So get that out of your head. And I love how Picard's like, same. And I'm like, that's why you guys are so great, because both of you know who you are. You don't feel, you refuse to change the nature of you. It's not like change your behaviors or whatever, but it's like changing who you are just so somebody else will like you. It's like, no, I'm Vash. Like I'm a thief. I'm sneaky. That's who I am. That's what I do. It's what I love. It's what I'm built for. And he's like, I'm a captain and I'm super like by the book and everything has to be right and fair and I can't compromise. And that's who he is and he shouldn't. So I love that.
This is why Vash and Picard were really great as a team on Ryza, and why they were really great to go, this has been super fun. See you in a year or two on Tagus 3 for like 5 minutes and smooches and goodbye, because that's a relationship that is never, ever, ever
going to work for the long term.
To work.
That's a perfect hookup relationship.
Yes,
it's like a friends with benefits situation.
The perfect summer fling. It's hot, it's spicy, it's fiery, and it's done in 2 weeks. And that's it. And you just like leave with good memories. So Picard leaves in a huff. And as all this is happening, then we see Q's head kind of peek around the corner through the wall. And he's like, ooh. The next thing he does is decide to visit Picard as he's in his jammies, getting ready for bed. So he doesn't actually sleep in his uniform. He sleeps in like a nice silky shorty set from Soma Intimates.
Like Geordi, right?
Who sleeps with his fucking shoes on like a wild animal.
And no cover, no blankets. Just his uniform and
Geordi's ancestor, you know what, Shereese, I have just decided that Geordi's ancestor living on Earth today sleeps in his blue jeans. That's what he does. That's the kind of person Geordi's family stock comes from.
Oh, we're so sorry for you, Geordi.
sleeps with his visor on, shoes, belt, helmet, gloves, and scarf. Like tricorder.
But not his phaser, curiously.
Too many accidents. He's learned the hard way. Anyway, so Q does visit Picard and he calls him out on what he's seen. He's like, I saw you with the woman Vash, who knew love would be a weakness for you. And Picard starts stomping around. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You leave her out of this.
Get out of my room.
Get out of my chair. Get out of my life. Yes.
Did you hear the part where
Mr.
Q was
Barkley?
like, if I had known this was your weakness, I would have showed up as a female?
Yeah.
Did you hear that? I was like, ooh, that's weird. That gives me some weird thought bubbles.
I don't like that idea at all.
Nope.
Yeah. And Q is like, ooh, I'm going to exploit the fuck out of this, and disappears. And Picard is like, God damn it. He's seen too much. Mr. Worf, can I see you for a moment? Like, it's very like, uh-oh, this is bad. Now,
Worf can do something about Q. Sure.
He can't even do anything about lore. Like, what's he going to do about Q?
He can't even do anything about random guy in Nottingham. I think his name was Guy. Sir Guy. Just some guy. He couldn't do anything about him. So.
Sorry, the way you just put that together is so brilliant. Some guy. You think his name was Guy.
Give us a minute. We'll be back shortly. Poor Worf.
You just kept going. Oh my God, that was so great. I'm gonna have to cut like 15 minutes out of this episode just me laughing. I really needed that good laugh. Thank you.
Anytime.
That was so perfect. Okay, but yeah, so back to like where we're at right now. Picard starts his like keynote speech and everybody's there to watch. And I love that he's in his dress uniform. And as he starts giving his speech, Beverly and Troy, Riker and Data all start looking like Robin Hood characters. You know, like a hat is snapped on one, a spear is snapped in the hand of the other, right? It's all cued in. Mm-hmm. And then Q changes Picard's outfit into his Robin Hood outfit. And then bam, they're all snapped into a forest, which the crew is like, Q? And it's like, yeah, of course it's Q. Obviously Q. Like, who else is this going to be? What'd you think? It was a transporter trick? Like,
yeah, because I think that was Riker's first question was like, is this Targus or whatever? Or maybe it was Troy. I don't remember who asked, but someone asked, was this the planet? And
I think it was Riker.
And Picard was like, I don't think they have pine trees or whatever kind of trees they had. Yeah, oak trees. I don't think they have oak trees down there. Like, this is no. And he nailed it right away. This is Robin Hood. That's what we're doing right now. This is
Robin Hood, and we're in Sherwood Forest. Turns out, Shereese, you and I in Southern California can go to Sherwood Forest. This was filmed on location at the Descanso Gardens in Glendale, California, which is in just outside of Los Angeles. So I thought that's kind of neat. You know, you can go run around and it's right there. That is one of the really nice things about us living around Los Angeles is that because this was filmed in LA, all of these locations were just sort of within like an hour to 2 hours, you know, reach of Los Angeles. And so, you know, I feel really lucky that we get to go to some of these places if we wanted to. Yeah. And they quickly figure out, they're like, we're at the Descanso Gardens in Glendale. This must be Sherwood Forest. And Worf says, sir, I protest. I am not a merry man, which is one of the best lines of the episode. That was
probably the best line in the episode. And then followed up by Data saying, actually, you are. It's just like, wait, what? And yeah, this was just such a fun episode. They all have these great costumes. They're all playing different characters. I think Picard is the one who, or Data, but I think it was Picard who sits and nails each and every character. You're so-and-so, you're so-and-so, you're so-and-so. All right, everybody knows who they are. And at that moment, they meet Sir Guy. There's a fight. It's dumb. But
Worf gets his ass handed to him again.
Yeah, and then Picard says, run away. So they all run away. Yep. And then Sir Guy is like, don't follow them for some reason. We'll just stay on the trail.
Stay on the trail, you fool. We'll never find them in the greenery. I was like, they just ran into the bushes like 8 seconds ago. How far could they honestly have gone?
Yeah.
They're 8 seconds away.
Also, just like look for the places where the bushes are being disturbed. That's probably where they've run to. Like that's them right there. Or they
still are right now.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Sir Guy was like, you'll never find them. Let's just keep going, even though we were just fighting. So they go to this clearing, which is about 3 feet past where they were with Sir Guy.
Mm-hmm. It's just on the other side of the bushes.
It's just right on the other side of the bushes.
You could still see like the legs of the henchmen like walking past under the bushes.
Sir Guy can see them over the bushes because he's on a horse. But he's like, you fools.
It's too late, you fools. Yeah. Off they go.
And what I love about when Q shows up is you hear the clip clop of the horse and everyone's looking down the lane. And then there's like that sound that always happens when Q shows up and him and the horse appear. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that the sound came before the actual visual. That was such a nice touch. Like that was just beautifully done.
What a fun effect. I remember loving that so much, even the first time I saw the episode. And it tickles me every time I see it, where it's like, oh, here's that cool part. And you hear like the clip clop. And it reminds me very much of Monty Python and the Holy Grail and the coconuts banging. Mm-hmm. And then you just see this horse and this man show up in a snap. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. So Q shows up because he's like, look, clearly this is a Robin Hood thing. And Picard is like, get out of my chair. And then he's like, get me back to my chair, up on the ship, get me back to my ship. And he's like, I'm on a horse. Anyway, Q decides to fill him in. He's like, but if we leave now, Maid Marian's head will still roll at high noon tomorrow. So there's that. And he's like, Vash. So Vash is trapped in this castle. Sir Guy of Gisborne is going to marry her or kill her. And he hasn't quite decided which one yet.
We find out that Vash is scheduled to die within 24 hours. So now we've got the classic stakes that we love so much on TNG, where you've got like a very short amount of time to save one or many, many, many lives. Mm-hmm. And everything depends on what you do next. So we've got 24 hours before Vash gets killed. And so they start like, okay, now they're planning, how can they go and rescue her? At the same time, we go, switch over to where Vash is. She doesn't know what is going on, where she is, what's going on.
She has no idea.
But like the beautiful con artist she is, she jumps right into character. Like at first she's kind of like, stop calling me my lady. Like, what is your problem? I love her little interaction with her nurse, who's like, when she's like, what, can I get you anything? And she's like, I want some ale or vodka or whatever she asked for, some kind of booze. And the nurse is just like, we're all out of liquor, or no, we don't have any more spirits, but I do have some fresh leeches. I just thought that was hilarious. Yes. And she's like, get out of my room, like, get out of here. And then Sir Guy comes in and is like, what, are you going to have me or not? And so she slaps him because she's like, get out of my life. And then he drops the little nugget that, okay, since you don't want to marry me, I'm going to kill you tomorrow. And then she's like, on second thought, let's talk. And I love how she flipped that switch.
Vash charm level 100 kicks in and she's like, Sir Guy, can we talk about this? Now I want to back up just a tiny bit. Did you notice that first of all, her costume is fantastic, but the back of her hair, she has long braids. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in regular life, Vash has like shoulder length hair.
Yeah.
So she had these long braids, and on the back of her braids were like two kind of like tubes that the braids go into, and like a metal tube that goes between the two tubes, forming like the letter H. And it was supposed to be like a decorative thing in your hair that keeps your braids like nice and parallel from like tangling or whatever. Because I guess braid tangles was a big problem back in I don't know.
I did not notice the metal H. I'll have to go back.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's kind of at the bottom of her braids, like at the small of her back. It's way down there. The other thing is, did you notice she tripped over her costume?
No.
She's like stomping around. Yeah, she tripped over her costume, which Jennifer Hetrick did accidentally, but the director decided to keep it in because it further painted that picture that she's like really uncomfortable.
Was in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that she's in the wrong place and she's really uncomfortable with this outfit. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. So she turns on the charm. And suddenly Sir Guy of Gisborne is like, well, I suppose, yes, maybe we will get married, right? He's just taken right in by her con. And
amazing.
Now, meanwhile, in Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood as Picard is, stewing over what to do. And Geordi is just very happily twiddling along on his mandolin. And Worf just comes up and picks it up by the neck and smashes it against a tree and hands it back. And he goes, sorry.
Yeah. And I have to say, Worf was not wrong. Because what was Geordi doing? They're in the middle of nowhere, and Q has snapped them out of their reality. And he's sitting there like ding, 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 with this like silly grin on his face.
Yes, so dumb. And part of me wondered if that was like programming, like Q programming, because he was supposed to be like a married man.
Part of me thought that too, but no one else was programmed. Like everyone else was just acting like their normal selves.
Yeah, it didn't really track. Now, Troy is learning how to shoot a bow and arrow.
Sure. And for what reason? We don't know.
Well, she's
because later on the episode, she doesn't use it.
She doesn't use anything. Well, we see why, because she shoots for the target and hits Data straight in the chest, like who's like 30 feet away to the left.
Yeah.
And I was
that was hilarious. I laughed out loud when I saw that. I was like, what just happened? That was
yes. Well, only with Data can that work, right?
Right.
If anyone else would have been like, oh my God, yeah, she would have killed them. But she was like, Data, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Right. And I thought that was pretty cute. He's like, well, it landed here and here between here and has breached this area, but like all my functions are fine. I'm fine.
And then he's also like, and your aim's improving. Like now that's improvement. Yikes.
I was an archery champion in college, and I was like, girl, your form is all wrong. I was pointing out like 7 different places in my mind where I was like, that's no good. That's also no good.
I did not know that about you, and I've known you for so long. That's really cool, Andrea.
Thank you. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yay. That's amazing.
And I happened to that day be wearing my hair in a mohawk. So I had a really great time. I did like a bunch of braids as like a mohawk. Yeah. So that was really fun.
So Katniss Everdeen. I just my level of impressedness just increased by 10, which is pretty hard because you're pretty high on my impress list.
Thanks, friend. But she didn't get to use it at all. So I guess it doesn't matter. It was just another like
it was just a really
comedic
funny
effect.
It was a funny scene.
It was cute. Now, Picard breaks in to Vash's room to save her because he's like, listen, I've come up with a plan, Riker. You guys stay here. I'm going to go get Vash. And they're like, are you sure that's a good idea? That doesn't seem, it's only one of you. And there's like a bunch of them. And he's like, I've already made up my mind. Stay here. That's an order. And
but I've got a great plan. I'm going to climb into the window. What could go wrong? Bye, everybody.
Yep. Meanwhile... But he does run into the bushes, and Riker's like, wait, he's already gone into the greenery. We can't follow him in there.
No way. Like, I mean, we couldn't possibly follow. We don't know. I mean, we know where he's going, but like, we don't know
literally be anywhere. He could be anywhere. Like it's Data. Don't even go in there. Now, in like perfect Vash and like Picard vibes, Picard breaks into Vash's room to save her, and she immediately starts to question his methods. And she's like, I'm not going with you. You don't even have a plan. Oh my God. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me with this? You were just about to sell your soul to not be killed. And here comes Picard out the window with like a plan, and you want to drag him back.
Mm-hmm.
You're already like, this is not the time. Maybe later, once you're safe, you could be like, there were like 10,000 safer ways you could have done this. And what the F were you thinking? But this was not it, girl.
No, time and a place.
Totally not
time and a place.
Time and a place. Now, as they're arguing, Sir Guy storms in and he's like, "Bah ha ha, this is the last time you'll get away from me, Robin Hood," or however he says it. And as Picard is ready to like pull his sword out and defend him and Vash pulls Picard's sword out of its own hilt and pulls it on him. And she's like, should have left when you had the chance. And I was like, this is some stone cold bitchery right here. This was like fucked up.
That's messed up. She turned on Picard. Like, I can't believe that. But what I love this whole time is how confused Q is. How he's just like, well, there's going to be an execution. And then he sees Vash like, nuzzling with Sir Guy. And he's like, wait a minute. And then like here,
he checks his calculations. Yep.
Here when she turns her sword on Picard and he's like, wait a minute. Like, I just love how he's like, this is not at all. I thought I knew everything that you could know about humans. I thought I knew exactly how she was going to react because I know exactly how Picard's going to react. And he's following the plan, right? He's doing he's doing exactly what Q expects. Yeah. And Vash is throwing him off his game.
She is the wild card. And that's what makes her so irresistible. Right. Yeah. So Q is like, I need to know more about this Vash, right? Like, because as we see Picard being taken away by the guards, Q is sitting kind of like it's very Shakespearean, where he's sitting sort of at the edge of the stage and we see him enjoying the show that's happening. And he's also part of the show, which I was like, this is really cool, kind of like a meta fold to the like scenery. And Q says to Sir Guy, like, congratulations on getting him. And Sir Guy's like, it's actually Maid Marian who gets all the credit. She turned his own sword on him. And that's when Q's like, wait a minute. This woman is a wild card. Like, I need to get to know this lady. And Vash tries to give her completely useless mincing handmaiden a note for Riker to be like, come and help the captain. Q pops in and finds it. And he was like, come and help the captain, guards, and then has them take her away. Now, my question is this. Where are they taking her? She's already imprisoned. Where are they taking her? She's already in a jail cell, she's already in like a prison cell. Where are you going?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, she was technically in her room because that's why she had her nurse there. She just couldn't leave the castle or move around freely, but she was in like a nice prison. They could have taken her to the actual dungeon.
Yeah. Can you imagine what real dungeons must have smelled like? Dear God.
Or felt like, just cold stone everywhere. Awful.
That's the idea. That's like depression right there. Now, she and Picard are now being sentenced, and Riker and company start sneaking in, and they're ready to do something. And they sneak in very Robin Hood-esque terms. Like they're wearing like their friar's hoods, and they're just kind of quietly walking in the background of this castle. It's like,
I love the scene where you slowly see each and every one of them look up to the sky, or like look to the right, look to the left. I just was like, this scene it felt like Ocean's 11. When you see like all the cast and you're like, oh shoot, something's about to go down. They're about to rob everybody. You know, kind of like that, where each one looks up and you're like, oh, that was great.
Yes. It's like one faces up and the next. Yes. The camera is like panning, and in its turn, every actor is like turning up. And I thought that was like, yeah, I love that. Now Picard and Q start to argue for a bit, because Q's like, is this really what this woman is worth? Picard, ha ha ha. And Picard is like, I'm not fucking playing your game. Can we just get this over with? And you can just like chop my head off or whatever.
And he also says, let Vash go because she's innocent. She has nothing to do with this. This is between you and me. And Vash goes, I don't know if you heard this part. She's like, oh, Jean-Luc, you actually do care. It was like she just realized, because it seems like he doesn't care from the fact that he hasn't told a single soul about her existence.
Yeah.
In the past year. And now he's, fighting for, besides everything else, breaking in, all the stuff trying to save her. But at this moment, she's like, oh, you do care. Aw. Right before they're about to be killed. So I'm glad she like got that message in the end.
Yeah. And as that's happening, Riker is like, Mr. Data, we need a distraction. And I love that Data pulls out one of two explosive devices he just happens to carry around in his arm and throws it into the fire.
That was new.
And it just goes off, kabloom. And in the distraction, Picard becomes an action hero and takes down like 20 fucking men alone. Like, it's ridiculous.
Did you see that chopping block they had him on? It was just like, hold on to this piece of wood really tight. I was like, I think that's why the chopping blocks had the like, restraints with your wrists and your arms and stuff like that, because it was really easy for him to get away.
Yeah, I feel like that will be, I don't know. I've seen chopping blocks before, like in movies and stuff, and usually it is just a block and you just have to stay
All the
there.
ones I've seen have a little scoop for your neck and a little scoop for your hands.
Oh.
And it like clips on the top so that you can't just like stand up. So you can't be a Picard. You can't just stand up and then fight like 20 dudes.
And be like, yeah, exactly. Off he goes. Now he jumps down unarmed onto the shoulders of like 2 or 3 men and knocks them down. And I was expecting to hear like the bowling ball sound when it crashes into the pit. I was like, okay, what is going on here? And I love, by the way, the whole time this is happening, Q is just sitting there eating food and watching the whole thing, like totally unimpressed, but very entertained. Like he's eating grapes. And then another thing is happening. Troy and Beverly are smashing vases onto the men's heads. And then you see Q looking over as he's eating like his chicken wings, and he looks back on his chicken wing and keeps eating. And I thought this was great. Also, Gates McFadden and Marina Sirtis were the only 2 actors out of the whole group who were actually trained in sword play.
And they were the only 2 who did not have a sword?
They were the only 2 who didn't. Well, the reason why is because Randy Russell and Ira Steve Bear said, if we're going back to like the 12th or 13th century, we want everyone to go back to 12th or 13th century historically, so the women wouldn't have been fighting.
So I thought, the thing I thought about is the women wouldn't have swords, right? Because women wouldn't walk around with swords. And even like Robin Hood's men, the only reason they had swords is because they were criminals. So like really knights would be walking around with swords. However, so my first thought was like, oh, the women don't even have swords. But then I thought, yeah, but there's like 20 dudes unconscious at their feet. They could pick up a sword anywhere. Why would they pick up a pot when you could pick up a sword? I don't know. I just felt like, no, that's
pointy and sharp. It's easy to run somebody through with it. A vase is heavy. You could miss. It's
kind of a one and done type of weapon.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the only disposable weapon.
Yeah. You get the one vase to hit the one head. And what if there's one guy behind him? Now you're done.
Yep. No, I totally get it. Now, I'm going to say another cool thing. I don't know if you did know this about me. Maybe I did do fencing in college as well. And I enjoyed it greatly. It is such a good workout and it's super, super fun. It really, really is. So maybe I should have tried out for this. I don't know.
Which is what Gates McFadden and Marita Sirtis knew and the others didn't.
Yeah. And they were like, dang it. Now, Picard turns into Robin Hood and he fights Sir Guy of Gisbane or Gisborne or whatever and runs him through with a sword and runs up and saves Maid Marian and they kiss immediately. And Picard is like, or Q is like,
yes.
Right. He's just slow clapping.
He does the least impressed clap of ever. And actually, that scene when he runs Sir Guy through, I just thought to myself, this is kind of gruesome to actually stab someone to death with a sword or any kind of knife is awful. And they're used to phasers kind of like, the person just falls over or turns into ash. Yeah, they just disintegrate or sometimes their heads explode. But to run someone through, I felt like was probably a new experience for all of them. And I was waiting for some kind of reaction like, oh my God.
Like, oh my God.
Like there's blood leaking all over my wrist. That's different, but but that would have taken this fun episode in kind of a dark direction.
I did like how kind of clean they made this, where they, Picard ran Sir Guy through with his sword. You never saw any blood. Sir Guy just doubles over and his stunt double does a spectacular job of throwing his body down the stairs and off this landing. I was like, holy shit. How did that guy not end up with like multiple broken bones? Like it was so impressive. Now, Vash and Picard are kissing. Q is golf clapping, or he's like slow clapping, and he blinks them back to the Enterprise. But he's like, she's good. She's very good. As Vash is like, he cared all along and he's so brave and cute. And he has his own car and like all these cool things about him. And Q is like, I think I need to know more about you. So he snaps everyone back to the Enterprise except for Vash.
Which has Picard worried sick because where the F is Vash and what did Q do with her? And this is Q.
And you're totally helpless. Like, what do you do? Where do you scan? The computer is like, Vash is not aboard the Enterprise. It's like, shit. But he ends up in his ready room as he's moped around all the usual places. And Vash appears. She looks like she just got off the Jungle Cruise or something at Disneyland.
Totally.
And Q appears dressed in the same way. And it turns out they're partnering up together. And Picard is like, no, bad idea. He's sneaky. He's untrustworthy. He's irresponsible. He's disrespectful. He's all these things.
He's impulsive.
Yeah. And I love that Vash goes, remind you of anyone? I was like, that's true. It seems like Vash and Q would make really good partners.
I thought the same thing. And I thought, wow, Vash is so self-aware. She's just so self-aware. She's like, oh, I'm all of those things. That's why it's going to be great. She's not like, what? You think that I'm irresponsible? You know what I mean? She knows who she is.
Are hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. She very much knows who she is. She's very at peace with who she is, which I love. And I thought the same thing. I was like, she and Q would make the perfect pair because they're so similar. They're both going to have fun. Like whatever crazy stunts he does that he thinks are so wonderful, she's going to be like, yeah. And how can I make money from it? Right. She's going to be so in there with him. And also I thought to myself, like, wait, are they like a couple now? But because it was like, oh, we're just partners. And like, aren't you going to kiss Jean-Luc? I was like, okay, there was no like romantic.
No, it was just
interest
adventure partners. Yeah. And Picard, this is kind of like the thing that I would have done as payment in full for Q's debt. Picard tells Q that Vash's safety must be guaranteed, which is like, cool. That is a way of sort of alleviating our distress as the viewer to be like, you can't just let Vash go off with Q. Let is kind of a strong word because what are you going to do? He's going to blink them both away and that'll be that.
And also she chose to go. But something of like, you should warn or some whatever leverage you have. And he did have that little piece of leverage of like, hey, if you really want to pay this debt off, this is the last piece. And then we're even. And, I did see this episode in Deep Space Nine. This happens early in season 1 where Q comes to Deep Space Nine. He comes to the space station with Vash, and they're fighting and they like hate each other or whatever. And I did not remember this episode because I always skip Qpid. So I was like, what? Wait a minute. When did Vash go with Q? When did that happen? I was so confused. And so when I watched this episode and we got to the end, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, okay. Well, I'm glad that gave you some closure because I haven't seen that episode of DS9, so I'll have to check that out. So, Q leaves so that they can kiss goodbye, and off she goes. Now, I got to say, as sort of a closing thought on this episode for Vash, you've got to acknowledge her ability to take it all in stride. Mm-hmm. This woman showed up serious ulterior motives with this archaeological dig just below, the Enterprise, hooks up with Picard again, sees him, is whisked away into this like fantasy world, has no effing idea what's going on, figures out what's going on, plays the scenario expertly, mm-hmm. ends up like twiddling Q around her middle finger, getting snapped back and like making a deal with him to like go on adventures. Like this woman can fucking take it all in stride. Like she's mm-hmm. such a trooper. And I really admire that about her.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of trivia. During the filming of this episode, Jonathan Frakes played Little John and he had a big bow staff. Mm-hmm. And a quarterstaff. So the prop quarterstaff broke during the filming in the sword fight at the castle. Mm-hmm. And he suffered a cut in his eye due to this quarterstaff. So he had to be taken to the hospital, but due to the rush, he was taken to the hospital in his Robin Hood costume. So Jonathan Frakes shows up to the ER with a cut eyeball, dressed as Little John. And I just keep thinking, what story does some doctor or nurses have mm-hmm. about like, I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Star Trek. And what the F is he doing? Because it's like, he's not even in his like uniform. It's nothing. You're just, mm-hmm. you're dressed in this character. And it's like, what?
Yeah. I think it's probably more traumatic for him than for the doctors and nurses. They're probably just like, we got another one, especially if they took him to the nearby hospital, which are going to be the hospitals nearest to filming. So I'm sure they were just like, another day in the life. When I used to work at a large hospital in LA, it was kind of like that when celebrities were admitted. It was like another day in the life, keep it moving. But I'm sure for him as a patient, he was like, and I'm dressed like Little John, just like, come on. Yeah. So what are your final thoughts on this episode, Shereese? This episode was so cute. I'm so glad I watched it, and I will definitely be adding it to the rewatch list. What about you?
Yeah, I think that this episode was just a fun romp in the forest for Picard and friends. It's always just easy watching for me. It's not science fiction. It's just sort of fiction. Mm-hmm. And it's just fun and silly and light. And it's just the perfect amount. If we had, multiple episodes like this every season, it would be a little much, but it's just the right amount. And I think, this is a really light episode. And next week we're getting into a much heavier episode.
Like kind of the opposite of this.
Like the opposite. As far as tone. So this is kind of a nice, light, like sparkling water before this like heavy smack of like whiskey or something next week. It's pretty tough stuff, but this was fun watching. It's the perfect amount. Next week, we're talking season 4, episode 21, The Drumhead. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to go clumping off into the greenery in Sherwood Forest, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.